Hello everyone. In this video we're going to go ahead and model the arm next. So we're going to start. There's two ways we can go about this. We can model the arm directly from the front view, or in this case, because my reference is set up this way, we can model it from the side view. Both will have proper proportions, and let's just go ahead and get started. So primarily I'm going to be modeling off of my front reference image. So with that being said, I'm going to start again with a poly cylinder. I'm going to go to my attribute editor, and I'm going to change it under my poly cylinder tab to 8. Again, just like the leg, I'm going to delete the caps, and now I have this choice whether I should go from side view to model the arm or front view. Either or work, but remember this: in the end we're going to have our character in a T pose. So with that being said, a T pose, obviously humanoid T, basically. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and model mine directly from the, I'm going to change this to 90 degrees, front viewport. I'm going to scale this down to match my wrist. And just like the previous one, we're not going to model the hand yet. I'm going to start right about here. So I'm going to begin by matching my reference as closely as I can, and then I'm going to go ahead and extrude and expand that out. And I'm going to keep going with this process all the way through. I'm pressing G for extrude as last tool used. So whatever your last tool used is going to be whatever the keyboard shortcut G reuses. So in this case, it's just extrude. Now, one thing to be careful of, and that is pressing the extrude button too many times. Just to show you what I mean, I'm going to go ahead and do this really quickly. I'm going to press G to extrude again, and then I'm going to press G again to extrude again, and then I'm going to drag this out. Now what that does, I'm going to press 3 on my keyboard. You'll see I have 2 edge loops here. Okay, I'm going to highlight one of them, and then I'm going to press 1. You'll see that's highlighted right on this edge seam. If I press 3 again to enter smooth mode, I'm going to double click this one. I'm going to go back to 1 mode. You'll see it's directly on that seam also. So what I'm going to do is, if that does happen to you, not a big deal. We don't have to delete faces and merge vertices and all that. Just highlight the edge loop that you have here, hold Control, and press delete. It's imperative that you hold Control while pressing delete, because if you just press delete without holding Control, it deletes all of the edges without deleting the vertices. I'll show you what I mean. I'm just going to press delete, but now I'm going to enter vertex mode, and you can actually see this awkward sort of line here. If I go to vertex mode, you're going to see all these vertices that I didn't delete. So in order to avoid that, go back here a couple times. I'm going to enter edge mode. I'm going to highlight this one. I'm going to hold Control plus delete, and you'll see that it cleanly deletes it. No problems, no mess ups with the geometry, and I can get back to where I was modeling. So I'm going to double click this edge loop to select the entire edge loop. I'm going to go back into 1 mode, and this is where the center of my elbow is. This is where it will bend, and this is the start of my forearm, basically. So I need to make sure I have 3 edge loops every time I create a hinged part of my body, such as the knee, the ankle when we get into the foot, the wrist obviously when we get into the hand, and in this case the elbow and the knee are the only 2 that we're concerned about at the moment. So this is the center of my elbow, and then I need to make sure that when we get into deformation, I have at least a minimum of 3 edge loops that allows this elbow to bend, okay, that are nearby. So I'm going to go to this one now, and I'm going to go to extrude, press W, and then I'm going to shift this up, and like so, and again. Now I have this shirt here. So there's a couple ways I can do this. I could go straight into the body with my arm and then kind of mess around and do the shirt later. If your character is like, let's just for instance say Spider-Man or something. I know we can't do copyright. I said that, but just as an example, if you had a Spider-Man who's in a skin-tight suit, you would just run this straight into the body, no problem. And we're going to stop at the shoulder. But because I have this t-shirt on, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to delete this last set of faces there. I'm going to select my edge, and I'm going to rotate it to match my reference closely. It doesn't need to be perfect. Something like this. And I'm going to start to extrude a little bit differently now. So I'm going to switch out of my front viewport. If you have a shirt on in this that sort of overhangs, what we're going to do is I'm going to begin this t-shirt. So I'm going to first, actually before I even get into the t-shirt, I have my side view here, and I'm going to rotate my arm. I believe this will be 180. Yep. And I'm going to now match it to my side view reference. And it doesn't seem to match my side view reference very well. Oh, that's because it stops at the shirt. Excuse me. So it stops at about the shirt. And because my arm's up and in the one view and my arms are at their side at the other view, this may not line up perfectly, but it's close enough for us to get started. So what I'm going to do excuse me, is I'm going to select this bottom edge loop, and I'm simply going to start to, and I'm only using the scale tool on this axis, and I'm going to start to match this reference on the side. If I had a top view, that would be awesome also, but since I don't, I'm going to just start to match this just like so. Okay, give or take about here. And again. And this is going to start to get the width of my arm that I'm trying to get. Feel free, if you'd like, to exaggerate muscles or anything like that in your model. It doesn't have to be an exact replica of whatever you're modeling. I don't expect these to be perfect in any way, shape, or form. I'm going to scale that out all 3 axes, and I'm probably going to have to fix it again, but that's okay. And then I'm going to scale it again, and I'm just trying to match it to that shirt. Okay? And as far as the arm is going, because I'm using my front reference primarily as my main reference, I'm going to not model this down to the wrist here, because I'm going to focus primarily on my front view reference for my model. So now that I've got the arm done here in this viewport, I'm going to switch back over here to my front viewport, and I'm going to go ahead and rotate this back to 90 degrees, and then I'm going to bring it back upward about here, and you'll see that it still lines up where I had left off, except this part. And this part, I'm simply going to press R, and I might have to make some subtle changes to it, but I'm just going to line it right back up to that shirt. And now you see it stops at the wrist still, stops at the shirt, and now I'm in a pretty good spot to begin modeling this shirt. And this is sort of where my creativity, if you will, is going to kick in. So from this point, I'm going to press extrude. I'm going to extrude actually one more time this way. I'm in my perspective view, and I'm going to go up the arm slightly, and then I'm going to go extrude outwards like so, and then I'm going to extrude again, and I'm going to go back this way, and then I'm going to extrude again outward, and then I'm going to extrude again and going back this way. Now what you'll see is that I actually just created the sleeve of my shirt. It doesn't need to be perfect. Don't worry about it. At this point, I'm I'm going to bring this back to about this point, because when my arms are hanging down at its side, they're going to have room on both sides of the mesh. So I can bring this slightly down, and I'm just making sure that I highlighted. I'm not going to want to click this one, but these here, this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. I'm just making sure I just select these vertices here that you see, the ones in yellow. And now I'm going to try to bring it down slightly, not too much. Just ever so slightly to match it slightly better. Doesn't need to be perfect. And you'll see that mine's not. And that's going to be good for this. Now I'm going to select back on this edge. I'm pressing spacebar to toggle through my viewports. And I'm going to begin this extruding process again, running up the arm. Extrude. I'm going to stop just about here and extrude. And I'm going to scale this at all three scales, about here. And one more time about here. Okay. Because this is where it's going to start to intersect with the body. So now I've got the start of my arm. Alright? I don't have the hand in there yet. I don't have the body, but I have the arm. So what I'm going to do, just like the previous one, I'm not too concerned about it matching my reference on the opposite side because I'm going to mirror it. So I only have to model half of the actual model, and then we're just going to flip it. Any asymmetrical things we'll fix and do with texturing, but for the most part we're just going to create a symmetrical character. Okay, so the next thing, if you remember, I'm going to press W. I'm going to hold D and hold X. I'm going to snap this to the center. Okay, I'm going to go Modify, Freeze Transformations, and now I'm going to Control D or Edit Duplicate, and I'm going to scale at -1. And you'll see that it doesn't line up exactly with my reference because my arms are slightly not a perfect T. One arm's a little bit higher than the other. Don't worry about it. We're only going to focus on one side. And now you'll see one of the most important things, as long as your body's not too skewed or twisted or your T-pose isn't too far off, you'll notice that the reference should match extremely close, if not exact, depending on how good your reference is, to the actual wrist there. So in this case, the wrist. So there we have our start of our arms. Okay, so we've started to model the arms. So for submission, I want you to take a screenshot, front view, side view, and perspective view. In your front and side view, before I do that, I'm going to delete this one really quickly. I'm going to switch to my edge mode, and I'm actually going to bring this inward like so. And I'm going to bring the next one slightly in also, like so. Okay, so I sort of have this concave inward sort of, you'll see my edge loops, I can see the entire thing kind of expanding outward here. And that's a pretty good start. So we're at a good point where we can, I'm going to flip this one more time, Control D, and scale -1. And one last thing, I want you to make sure when you press 3 on your keyboard that your reference or your mesh doesn't have those extruding issues that I was talking about earlier in this video. Alright, so mine does not, because I went ahead and fixed it earlier. And the last thing I can do is hold Shift, right click, soften edges, and I can do the same thing here. And you'll see that I've got the start of my character. I've got the arms and the legs in place so far. So this is where we're at. We're going to save this up to this point. File, save scene as. Lab 4. Modeling the arm. Save. Continue. Okay, so that's all I've got for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for the next one, and if you have any questions, again, email me, inbox me, etc., etc. Alright, thanks for watching, and we'll continue with the next video on completing the character model.